Hi everybody, good morning. I really like this 9 o'clock talk after the party. I have a beautiful voice, and everybody is awake, so yeah. So I will start just to start in a sweet way and to get everybody comfortable with directly a small theme. Actually, who here is working on film or animation? Oh wow, welcome. And game? And maybe automotive, something like this? No? Architecture? No? Okay. Oh yeah, there. Great. So yeah, let's watch that.
Today is going to be an amazing day. And about time. We've been waiting for you forever. What? You promised we go hunting today. What? Oh yeah, be right down. Good morning, Georgie Hoot. Any good news today?
Indeed.
Super. See you later. What's wrong? Can't you see I'm ready? Come on, tell us, what are we going to hunt for? Patience. It's going to be dangerous. We will have to cross the great wide forest, surmount many obstacles in order to extract some witch's claws. Some witch's claws? What are they? Aha! You'll find out. So then, are you ready? Yay! Okay, well off we go. Follow me. Yay! Those are your so-called witch's claws? Well, yes, but they're just flowers that aren't even dangerous. A bunch. They are. Wherever they grow, nothing else can grow. That's why we have to pull all of them out. And what's more, we can make delicious jam out of them. Yum! Yay!
So yeah, it reminds me, like right now, watching TV when I was a kid before going to school. So it's just the same for the talk. So this is the trailer of a TV series. It's going to be 52 episodes of 11 minutes for French television. And what is really great about this is like it has been made by the studio, a small team, like in pre-production. And what's great is like what you've seen here was like fully real time. Like if you can just play it back. And like you can, it's pretty fun. You can also change the language. Let's go, I don't know, like here.
Indeed.
And if you look well, if I change the language, it changed the newspaper language also.
Any good news today?
Indeed.
Super. See you later.
Yeah. It's pretty fun also because they like this the hair, for example, here is also real time. So if I stop, it continues moving. They use a close system attached on the skin so that it moves around. And another good thing is like this was all done in Unity 2019.2, I think. And there's no Alembic cache, for example, here. It's because we extended the number of of influence per bones, and they could actually have all the characters just being skinned in real time here. So it made a big difference. And it's not using universal render pipeline because the main tech artist, Seb, hi if you watch the video, he knows Amplify shader, so it's still there. But there are, I think, 4 or 5 shaders for the entire scene. And what is pretty cool about that is that if we go there, we can just play and change the...
Mais oui, j'arrive.
No, okay, let me go back. Okay, here. If we go there, you can just change the weather anytime, which is pretty cool too. And what is nice also is like if you hear well, when you pause, you still have the ambient sound. I don't know if you hear that. No, actually, yeah. And it's not the same if it's winter or summer, and it's keep the same during stuff. Yeah. And another fun stuff is like you have this character and you can move him around. Yeah. Anyway, so just to say that before even talking about what's coming, it's what you can do. They didn't have to modify anything. It's kind of Unity off the shelf now, and so I'm pretty happy that you can get to that because there are little things like blend shape were scaled before that, and you couldn't do the rigging, and you didn't have the like we are until 32 to 55 influence per bones now, and you can now have the real-time rigging. And the reason why they did that somehow is for many reasons. One is like the director wanted to have an environment which is living, because the forest is very important and nature is very important in this. So it wanted to have something where the world lives around the characters, and it's kind of something that that is quite expensive if you do this in a TV series. So yeah. Okay, so let me shut this down, and let's go back to let's rewind a bit on the back what happened in the few years, because I don't know if you followed, but like so many things happened in 3 years. So like Unity was 3 years ago, there was actually not much tool in Unity for film. Like there was no timeline, there was no post-processing stack, there was no HDRP. Unity 5 was almost still pretty new, but still people were using Unity already for film. So as a previs of Jungle Book was done on Unity 3, and they extended just Unity at the time, adding PBR and tons of stuff.
Fidelity headset.
It was Digital Domain doing this. They kind of extended their tool when VR arrived. So all the previs of Ready Player One, for example, was done with Unity. You can see in some shots there. It's a video you can watch online. It was very fun on the Ready Player One because, of course, like being in, like making the previs in VR of a film which is happening in VR is pretty nice. And 3 years ago, there was a friend, Michael, who was working on a TV series, also Mr. Carton. And at the time, there was no timeline, so you used an asset from the store, and post-processing stack was just not there, and you just bought different assets on the store. And at the same time, we did Adam, and Adam was our second internal demo, who was using the timeline, which was in development at the time. And again, no post-processing stack. All the volumetric lighting was a custom plugin. Like many things were actually very custom in Adam. So in the meantime, at the time you could make film, but it was like you had to look around what to do. And actually that's where like in 2017, we released the timeline officially, and the post-processing stack was there. So we worked with Oats to try to see if giving the actual software that you download online and you don't extend it with too many plugins, or you don't modify anything, you could actually do the same as Adam 1 or something in the same spirit. So Neil Blomkamp did that in 2017. they started with a normal team of a VFX team. Also, it was very interesting to see if VFX people would appreciate working this way, or if they would hate it because it's real time and maybe it doesn't look good enough for them. But actually, they appreciated it. They started in spring, shipped this one in September, and they shipped the third episode in November, I think, for the SIGGRAPH that year. So it was a very good conclusion that our tools were getting there, but the graphics were still lacking a lot of things. So in the meantime, at Unity we had this big push of like rewriting the script around the pipeline that you've all heard, and starting to work on HDRP. We did Book of the Dead. We added like all the shaders to have like the code system and the stack lead so that you can push really the quality higher and so on. And then the question is like, when you have a pretty good tool set, is like, does it actually work in a big production and not just like short film? So in the meantime, the people who were working on Jungle Book, like Girish, worked on another project, The Lion King, and Genesis was a platform, like the virtual production platform, which became the like running in Unity Editor. You could do your virtual production. It became a product and not just like one tool that you do for one production. In also the same year, 2018, so just like 2 years or 1 year after the beginning where there was nothing, a team of 130 people released this short film which went into competition, and the goal here was kind of try to do something which would look like feature film quality, but with a kind of indie studio. I go fast because I want to talk about the features also, but what is interesting here is like it was 130 people spread across the world. I think it's pretty rare to be able to do that in a CG production, and and they had no infrastructure. Basically, they used just the cloud to store their data, and then everybody was opening his scene somewhere in the world and working on this on Unity, and you didn't have a render farm or anything. In India, YouTube is very big, and like there is about, I think, 700 million people having a smartphone and watching contents almost solely through their phone. So there are a lot of kids' TV show, and because it's on YouTube, you need to produce a big number of content, like 1 or 2 per week. But they were like this studio. When I met them, they were still using like a Redshift and a traditional production pipeline, and they moved to Unity very quickly. So yeah, this is a result in Unity. Another interesting thing also is the transmedia aspect. So Baobab Studio are very famous for all their VR applications. A lot of people from DreamWorks who created Invasion, like different things, and they did this VR experience called Crawl the Legend, which was beautiful, about an Indian story, and with Oprah Winfrey for the voice and John Legend for the crowd. But they ended up finding that you have this VR experience, which is beautiful, but then just a small set of people in the world can experience it. So they just took the same project that they had and just put some cameras on top of it and created a 16-minute short so that they can reach a broader audience. It's actually interesting because the result looks really good, but sometimes the shader is a bit noisy, and it's just because normally when you render out a film from a real-time engine, you will super sample so that you have a very smooth image. But the shader, when they coded it, was dependent on the resolution of the screen. So when they wanted to super sample, they actually would have had to rewrite kind of the pieces of the code that they needed. So they just didn't have time for that. Here we can see how they reuse, like, there is about 40 minutes of experience in VR, and you see on the left it's a VR experience, and on the right it's the final thing, and it's pretty close. And I think it's something very important. Like, if you use a real-time engine to make production, like linear production, it's also to allow you to jump between these two worlds. And then the next question is like, okay, I can produce, but can I really produce with a big team? So yeah, this year, Lion King was released, and like every shots were shot inside of the Unity editor. You can actually see that here on the bottom right. So they are filming live directly there, and you have multiple Unity editor open. One is for the lighter, one is for the multiple ones are for the location scouting in the morning, and so on. And so this was like this was done entirely in Unity, and there was no modification of source code or anything like this. And MPC made Genesis after that, and they already made a second movie with the same system. Disney and Disney TV also was like they create a lot of contents, animated content for television. It's a huge number of minutes produced per day. So they wanted to evaluate what is a gain, because that's always a question. Like if you use a real-time engine to create something, to create what you know, which is an animated TV series, what is the exact time that you gain? So we work together so that we can really maximize, see the maximize chances to evaluate this time. And they created 3 episodes, so kind of a mini representation of what a TV series would be, but made in the condition of broadcasting, so that you go and you have the validation of the broadcaster and everything. We will see the result after that. And we have, and we work also with a company who started to produce this TV series, 52 episodes of 11 minutes. And they started last year. They started to make the first episodes in the built-in render pipeline, and then they moved to HDRP, and they were really early adopters. And on this one, it's very interesting. They are maybe here, actually. There is, I don't know if they're here already, but they have a talk this afternoon if you want to know more about this production. But just to say that this one is interesting because they wanted to have super high quality fur, like in Zootopia, and they wanted to have 52 different, like it's Indiana Jones meets Zootopia, which means that on every episode you have a different place in the world, and each place in the world has maybe like 5 or 10 sets. And usually in a TV production you cannot afford this kind of stuff. So they use Unity to render all the backgrounds and all the sets so that they can be super efficient there. And they rendered out from Unity all the cameras, placement, and the lights and the environment probe. And then they rendered the character in Maya. And then they composited the 2 of them to get the final result. And it's very interesting because now they are like, I think they are halfway through production. And you have 100 people working on this pipeline every day, and it's very interesting. And of course, and that's kind of also what pushed me here is when I was working as a field engineer, I was seeing the community doing like super cool stuff. And when I was visiting a film or animation event, nobody knew about Unity, and I thought it was a pretty cool tool to work in a new way. So for me, this is what makes me also super happy. For example, Norman's Island. It's from Nathan. He works at ILM, and he actually just did that in his kitchen with 2 friends, and he started to work on a small animated TV series, and just took the engine and didn't talk to anybody, and just did this in his own on his own side. So where we are, like it's been like 3 years, and all this happened, and our software evolved in a way where our natural evolution was good for everyone, like a timeline, post-processing stack, and HDRP, and all these things. But we came to a moment where you start having actually a lot more external productions and demos, and it's the time where you have to ask yourself, like, should I maybe give the features that everybody needs each time, you know? Like, so what we have learned from these 3 years. So what happened is like many studios started to take a content that they have and ported it to Unity to see if it's kind of good enough. You know, the rendering qualities was the first question for many people. And we found out that almost in every cases, for TV animation, for example, people were actually like they were showing to the people the 2 versions, and sometimes people were like, I don't even know which one is the offline one or the real-time one. And it was surprising because I didn't expect it that somehow, but the rendering quality was not an issue. except if you have tons of hair and stuff like this, as we've seen in Zootopia, it will probably be an issue. We saw also that the people who were working this way were working differently in smaller groups, more together and less in a kind of pipeline way. And it kind of led to a lot more like early iterations on like a lot of things were happening more naturally, like it happens in real life, more than like you have to plan and then people execute. No happy accidents. Also, it's funny because it's something also like somebody asked this in a conference to a few people who made these contents before. Like, tell us about a happy accident because it's real time and then you can do whatever you want. And the directors had no idea. Like they didn't remember any moment where they did something which was strange and then it ended up being good. And it was kind of bothering because it's like, yeah, but you can do anything, so maybe you do something which is fun. But actually, it was very interesting because I discussed with them. And what happened is like, they didn't have accident because you control everything. You know, you move the camera and you want to go here, you move it here. So basically, most of the time you do what you want. So an accident will be if you stumble on the mouse or something like this. But it's not really about the fact that it's real time. The fact that it's real time actually makes you do what you want. And also we learned that there is kind of two kind of company or people or whatever, but there are the people who believe in it and just jump in it, don't ask themselves too many questions, and they just go straight, and it will be a new path, you have to learn new things, but it's kind of working. And you have the people who try to compare Unity as what they're using every day, and it's harder for them. You know, it's like, oh, you don't have this or you don't have that, and you match. And I think it's very important for anyone to, if you're not from the industry, to say, okay, I give a chance to work the way this one works and not trying to make it work the way I work too much. Like, of course, there are mutual learning. But yeah, it's not like I will work exactly the same way and just switch the software. And we know that one of the biggest challenge is really the production pipeline. When you're 100 people working together, you have to exchange animations, you have to exchange assets, and somehow Unity was not actually designed. And I think we are making a lot of efforts also collectively to do this. But the formats are very important somehow. Like that's the point of this slide. For example, OpenSubdiv, it's very important to have very nice contour. So either you have a very tessellated asset, or you don't have much choice right now. Even if HDRP has some tessellation, but it's more lucky and less controllable than OpenSubdiv, for example. And also, right now we are in a stage where people just take the engine and kind of try to do what they were doing, and they produce the same way. I think just the fact that you use an engine just opens like crazy tons of possibilities to do it in a total different way. Like what we have seen at the beginning also, but like to use more like real-time cameras, to have motion capture, to have MIDI controllers and stuff like this to perform and to create. Use more procedural systems so that you have to do less and kind of be creative with that. I think also, for example, I will talk about that later actually. So the conclusion when we work with Disney was kind of like, if you measure every steps and you do it in a very optimized way, which means you have a good asset pipeline and you don't do compositing at the end and you just render out from Unity. Like all the gains cumulated, you can, like they measured that you can get around like 2 times, you can go 2 times faster than in a normal production for the same kind of quality. In some other cases, like Bewater, for example, they have a pipeline where they don't want to produce twice as fast, but they just want to gain on some places. Like this, they kind of represented this as the energy which is spent on a TV series. And they say, with using a real-time engine, we will save the energy in some places and spend it somewhere else. So we get to the point. So what do we do about all that, and what have we done? So basically, when we started, Unity was made for many things, and kind of the bridge to these worlds, which is like VFX, animation, broadcast, entertainment. was the XR world. So from there, we have two axes. One is AA animation, and one is virtual production. And the way we go there, we have three kind of directions, like pushing rendering and pushing animation, which goes here. Virtual production is more about introducing more real-time control, like mocap and cameras and so on. And what is common to everything is a production pipeline, and it's kind of very, like what we said before, it's kind of the entry point of being able to put 100 people on the system. So somehow we have mostly worked on the middle one and on the top one until now. So that's where I want to go. So the production pipeline. So we started the R&D team in January this year, basically, or end of November last year, and we directly like put almost all of our focus on that. So instead of like having just Unity and you import from DCCs, we really wanted to put Unity in the middle of a production pipeline. So one is connecting to your asset management software. So we created the Python integration. It will be public. It's been on alpha, private alpha for almost 8-9 months, and it will be public in the coming days. We're just waiting for one legal things, but it will be a GitHub package first, and then it will be a Unity package. So this shotgun integration wraps the entire C# code. It's editor only, but it also wraps your own plugins, and it's very interesting to have this because you can really script your asset import or the creations of shots from Python, and even doing, like, for example, if there is a USD plugin, you can go and access the USD plugin from Python. You can also call Python from C#, so that if you want to interface with many systems externally. So we build Python, and then we work with Autodesk to do the shotgun integration, which was a good way to prove that the Python integration was good. So that was like the basis. Almost everybody was saying if you want that Unity is used in a real studio, that's the first thing we have to do. And then the second thing that we worked on was getting video or frames out of Unity. We had the recorder, which was around, but didn't really have a strong ownership through time. So now it has a full-time ownership. We shipped, I think, 5 or 6 minor versions of the recorder, fixing a lot of things. Now you can do audio back down, so you can just record the audio separately so that you can do the mix after. You can do render passes since 2019.2, so you can have the beauty pass, the albedo, the diffuse, and it's based on an API of HD render pipeline, which is an API that you can call there, and if you want to customize it, you can go at this place. You can export image sequence, but it was the case before. But you can now super sample them, and what we're working on right now is an encoding API. So, like right now, if you record video with a recorder, it records with H.264, and you don't have much control on the quality. So basically, it's kind of good to just have a visual result, but you won't be able to do anything with this video. So we created an encoding API so that you can plug any backend behind this. So we created the encoding API, and now we will propose an FFmpeg backend with only royalty-free codecs. But then you're free to replace with like any backend that you have, so that you just use a recorder and it records this way. And we're discussing with Apple to have a ProRes backend so that you can directly export ProRes, and maybe the NXHD, we have to check this. So that's very important, and like to know that when you use Unity, you have somebody who is taking care about the recorder is very important, because you always have these little bugs through versions and through like timelines, evolutions, and so on. The other thing that we worked on was, but which is across any kind of production, is a round trip between your DCC and Unity. So the FBX round trip kind of really evolved in a lot of ways in the past year, to be able to transport almost any kind of data. attributes. And actually, we have access to the source code of FBX. So in FBX 2020, there will be the first, I think, one of the first evolution where we add vertex color for blend shapes so that you can have more control through FBX. But we don't focus only on FBX. We worked on the USD plugin, and we also worked on the Alembic plugin. So the Alembic plugin is a Unity package. It's not in preview. It's official. And same thing. Like sometimes you make a plugin, and if you don't maintain it and if you don't own it, it has issues. For example, an Alembic, because the vertices are moving, if you have motion vectors, you need to generate motion vectors from the vertex animation, and this is which is managed differently in the standard pipeline, in the new universal render pipeline, and HDRP. So now we actually generate the motion vectors for HDRP in the correct way. Yeah, and the other part that we started to work on is the interchange with video editing. Like we know that even if you have timeline and you can do some editing, there is always a moment where you will put an editor because it's his job, and he won't go on Unity and just open Unity and work on timeline. He doesn't know this software. So you want to be able to export an EDL or something like this and import it back. It's the same for the audio person. So, and one very important thing also that we worked on was platform support. So like the theme. I think without theme, I'm not sure if the Linux editor will be supported officially. So now that was also one of the requirements. I think about 50% of the studio worldwide, at least in VFX animation, are on Linux. So we knew that at some point it will become a strong requirement. So now it's in preview because there are still things to go, and still a lot of people, even if they have a Linux pipeline, because you don't want to change everything at the same time, they still use Unity on Windows at the beginning. So we don't have enough feedback to say that we're confident that it's good to be like in parity, and there are some there are a lot of things to check also on Vulkan versus HDRP. So this is a small video about Python. So when you install a Python plugin, you get a small, very simple Python console. So you can start writing code in Python in the editor and accessing from Python your Unity functions or your C#, any C# function. You can import a script there, and what is happening actually is like, and you can call, you can see here, you can call Python from C#, and what we do is actually we had an issue at the beginning because when you add a new script, there is a domain reload happening in Unity, and so you need to run the Python wrapper in a separate process. So each time there is a new script coming, we kill the process, there is a domain reload, and then we launch again the process. Also, if you want to have multiple things coming, you need to be able to have multiple processes running in parallel if you want to have Python for one thing and Python for a window. So that's what we've been working on, for example. And also what is great is like, because it's an offline process, like if your code is crashing or if you have an issue with Unity, with Python, you can just kill the process and you don't have to kill Unity, because if your project is big, you don't want to, I don't know, each time you type a wrong Python code that you have to restart Unity and it launch again and so on. So this is a video showing the shotgun integration. So basically in Unity now you can open the shotgun panel. So for the people maybe who don't know shotgun, because I think in the game industry it's not so famous, but it's an asset management software. So basically you define your scenes, your shots, your assets, and you can have like snapshots and videos for each one of them. You can assign tasks, and you can review. And in Unity, you can, in the integration, you can open the panel. If you're an artist, you open the panel in Unity. You can get your task directly from Unity. And if you do any change in the scene, when you publish, it will automatically use a recorder to publish a video which will be uploaded to Shotgun with some metadata that you will have control of with a Python script. And then it will be uploaded to Shotgun. Somebody will do the review. They will say maybe that now the review is done, but maybe there is an asset to fix, so it will create a task for another artist who maybe will open this task in Maya, change the things in Maya, and so on. So it's pretty powerful, I think. Asset interrupt. So I was talking about this. Like in particular one which is interesting. So of course importing FBX is important, but also exporting is pretty important. You know, like a lot of people like more and more Cinemachine to do cameras, but still there is a point when you want to retouch it when you are close to the final thing. So you need to be able to export the cameras, for example, from Unity. In Alembic, one of the things also which was a big pain was there is no material description. There is no official material description in Alembic. So we created something. It's in a package. If you open Unity, it's called Film Toolbox, and there is something which is pretty interesting actually for anyone. But it's called a material mapper. So it will, if you select a game object, it will list you all the materials which are underneath this game object, and you will be able to remap like the materials which are underneath that. And it's pretty convenient for a lot of things. But for Alembic, it's really nice because if you have one Alembic 5 with 30 materials, there is no way that when you drag and drop, it automatically assigns the materials right now. But with a material remapper, you can just associate the materials, the map, and then you save this map and it will be reapplied. One thing we've done also for the Alembic one in particular, is that if you do your look dev in FBX, so for example here you have the jacket and you have the materials described in the FBX, you can have an automatic mapping, just drag and dropping the FBX, and it will find the naming which are matching between Alembic and FBX, and it will just do the remapping automatically. We also did a USD plugin. There is two parts of it. One is a wrapper on top of the USD API. So basically you have access from Unity to kind of any function from USD. So it's very convenient to integrate in your pipeline. At MPC, that's like they use mostly the low-level API so that they can customize it and plug Unity into the production pipeline, pull the assets and push the assets back the way they store them. And if you inside the plugin, there is kind of a big, massive window where you have tons of options and you can import USD. But this one is great to play around with, but it has a lot of workflow issues. So it's it's something we still need to work on. Also, we need to be able to live link. It's very important in animation. 50% of the studio are animators. So ideally, you would like the animators to just animate live in the final film. So Unity Japan developed MeshSync, which is a plugin live linking Maya, Max, Motion Builder, Blender, Modo. And they just released recently a new version, which has a vertex cache, so that you have a very fast exchange of vertices between Unity and Maya. We will be able to go even one step further using the new Mesh API, which is coming. But it's already like super improved the exchange between the two worlds. This one is available on GitHub, and we would like that at some point it's available maybe more integrated as a package and kind of more verified across the different versions. So the recorder, I talk about that. And for example, when we developed the features in the past year, we work with a few studios. So for example, Captain Bimsa is the first feature film where you have almost every frames which are rendered in Unity. All the foregrounds and all the backgrounds are rendered in HDRP. And so they do a lot of compositing because they film the actors on a green screen. And so they needed to composite the two worlds together. So they took an asset from the store, but they had some limitations, and then they had a few issues with HDRP. And we wanted to develop this, so we kind of like created a prototype, sent it to them, work with them, and then they used it, and then we could move to the kind of the final one. So this is pretty crazy because they really had a very, very small team doing all the art and all the rendering. They had no farm, just a small office to do a feature film, which is on many theaters across Denmark, Sweden, and Norway, I think. And most of a lot of the assets on the background are actually just asset store, or Book of the Dead Trees and stuff like this, but it looks really cool. And Editor Interrupt, I have a small video here. Time is running out, but yeah, you get the idea of like being able to do the storyboard, give it to an editor, and the editor will edit the storyboard, and it will export an EDL, and you will have all the frames of the storyboard in timeline with the right editing. Then you will be able to block out in Unity on top of the storyboard. Then you will have a second version of your animatic, which is made in 3D and more based on your real assets. And you can export it back to the editor so that you can re-edit this second version of the animatic and put it back in Unity so that you can continue working on this place. Work until the end. Maybe use this EDL to populate your shotgun or your asset management system so that all the shots are associated on your asset management. Then you continue working, and when your film is final, you will have still some margins around every shot, and you send it back again to the editor, and he will again edit a last time, and you can still iterate this way. So that's the idea. It's in private alpha. We hope to release it soon. If you want to have access, just write to me. So artist tools is very important, but because we are at Unite, you probably already know a lot about them. There's nothing specific about film here. Just the point is really, again, that all these artist tools and the way they are in a real-time engine, the fact that I think they can generate a lot of creativity to create contents in a very different way or to generate new style, new art. I strongly believe that like each time you change tool and you change your process, you will change the way the content look. And so it's very important. And in rendering, actually, we also have some influence because we are the ones who are like saying, don't stop to console, but like don't stop anywhere, you know? Like if you have something which says super high quality, which means it's the maximum you can get on a normal GPU for a gamer, it's like we're saying, no, I just want that maybe it takes 60 milliseconds to do a depth of field. So there are a few things like highlighted here. So for example, light layers, which allows to do the lighting by layers, to associate a light with certain object. Soft shadows, array light shadows, and physical camera, AOVs come there. And we also have this project, I don't know if you've seen this one, Sherman. It's a short film that we made internally with a innovation group, M&E Innovation Group. It's a short film, and the goal with that was to release a full project that you can download. And one of the technical challenge that we wanted to try to tackle was fur in real time for animated content. So we did this shell rendering fur, and it's an extension of HDRP, which requires a few modifications of code on top of that. But you can look at it if you look for a fur. It's more targeted as an offline fur, some example for like, because there are some post-processing which is long happening so that it cleans up the fur. And of course, I didn't talk about the obvious things. I kind of focused on the production pipeline, but of course, XR is at the center of all this equation. Like this example, Gloomy Eyes. I don't know if you played this experience. It's pretty beautiful animated film in VR. Or Battle Scar, which is amazing. Or the different Disney project. There is one here which is also fantastic. I've heard. And it's great to see that what happened in the past 3 years was the fact that we took Unity from being like Unity was there and you could have used it to do something else. But now we're at a point where an artist can start to take it and don't have to shop around to create things. Or a studio can take Unity and start producing and don't have to develop the basic stuff that he had to do. Yeah, this studio, for example, yeah, they did this TV series, Spanish TV series, and they were just saying how hard it was at the beginning because they had to discover many things and change the way you work and so on. But how like all the gains were really worth like investing some time and suffering a bit to learn something new. This one is also very interesting. My time is almost done. It's done actually, but like this one is interesting because that's exactly the point of real time, is the fact that you're not anymore into a system where you're offline and you create something offline so that you have an offline content. You can start to mix and match. So VTubers, which are YouTubers which do motion capture and are anime characters, are 8,000 in Japan, and they are super, super famous. So they made a sitcom placing multiple virtual cameras and the most famous VTubers in Japan together, and they make a sitcom with a few episodes, and it was just shot real time. And they just record like with a black magic card, they just record the outputs. They don't even bake anything. And then they just record the different passes and they just do a small compositing to get the final result. So I go fast. What we do in the future, we want to improve and continue like improving the standards and the support for them. Real-time ray tracing is a huge game changer in the next few years because like the quality will be less and less an issue. Digital characters are important, and I think augmented reality, like being able to take this content and push it out to any kind of experience, a theater, a live broadcast event, and mix and matching video and real things is big. So there is a roadmap here. I just laid it here, but watch it online, you pause, because it's what I've said and what the future is there. Come and talk to me, and that's all. Thank you.